Pastor Daniel and Randy Canchi on the Legal Lens. After a slowdown last week with respect to the show, we're doing one thing at a time. I'm sure you all really appreciate getting to know my mother. She has just a volume of positive things to say about me. So we all appreciate a little bit of embellishment from now and again. So we're here today with a former client of mine, Mariah Cook, and she's going to talk to us a little bit today about the, well, I want to say do's and don'ts of being a client, but some of the realities and some of the things that people believe that are kind of misnomers and a little bit of misconceptions. Randy's back since it's not me and my mom, so we're glad to have Randy back, and we're just going to start out by kind of going over a few things. Randy, what's going on?
Well, I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about today, the theme of today is client relationships with their attorneys, and I think part of it is debunking sort of the myth. People are educated on that by what they see on TV, but in the practical world, what's important for clients to know when they come to a lawyer is a few things. Number one, the most important thing to understand is this is an important relationship. It's a fiduciary relationship where we owe to our clients the highest level of care. But we can only do our job so long as clients are doing that job as well. And I think the most important thing that clients can do with lawyers is communicate. The duty runs both ways. We have to inform clients about, progress on the case, about what's going on so that clients can make informed decisions. But we can only be so informed as well as long as the client is communicating with us. Client has to let us know when they move. They have to let us know when they're sick. They have to let us know how they're feeling. They have to let us know about changes and what's going on in their everyday world. And that helps us to adjust. That helps us to understand the client more. The more that we understand each other, the better the relationship is. One of the things that I know, Patrick, I'm sure that you faced in the past is sometimes there is complete urgency on cases and sometimes there's not. Sometimes things slow down. A lawsuit gets filed. It may take weeks or even months for all of the defendants to be served. There's not much that we can do except, serve those defendants. Then discovery starts and it is just going fast. We may need a client to answer something right away. There are sometimes in a lawsuit where it's complete triage, and we need to be able to communicate with the client. So it's really important that clients communicate with us. We're human too. We sleep every once in a while. So it's better that clients give us information well in advance of deadlines so that we can do our job. We're not sort of under the gun last minute. I think that's when mistakes get made. With discovery, I like to jump on it as soon as it comes in. It takes a month. We have to gather documents. Clients have to help us to do that. They have to give us the story. And I like for everything to be done a few weeks in advance so we can make it absolutely perfect by the time it goes out. But again, that's only made possible with clients that are efficient and responsive. So I think that's one thing that's really important is for the lines of communication between client and attorney and client always be forthcoming and truthful more than anything else.
Yeah, I think Randy brings up a really good point that people need to understand in a nutshell is this is not a full-time babysitting job for us. You bear some of the responsibility along the way. And what I mean by that is you have obligations that we can't fulfill for you. We can't make you go to medical appointments. We can help you make the appointments, but we can't take you physically. You have to want to help yourself a little bit along the way. You have to do the things that we can't do. We're not undergoing medical treatment. I can't agree to have surgery. I can't make sure the surgery gets shown up for. I can pay for it, but the one thing, there's two things effectively in a case that you can't fix. You can't fix a gap in medical treatment, and you can't fix a lie. And I tell every client that there is on the face of the earth, all you've got to be with me is forthright. You've got to be honest. You've got to be truthful. I don't care what it is, because believe me, I've heard it all. I've seen it all. There's nothing you're going to do to surprise me. I've had clients who stole pies from their neighbor's house and got arrested, and they wanted to argue that it was a $700 pie so that they could charge him with a felony. I've had clients hold up a McDonald's with a water gun in a vehicle in a drive-thru. there's nothing you're going to tell me that I haven't seen.
Oh, that shocks us.
Yeah. I mean, there's simply nothing that bad either, because the thing is, there's ways to prepare you for when you give testimony that are going to solve some of these problems, diffuse some of these problems, or I'm going to make the defendant work for it. Yeah. Okay. And when clients aren't forthright and lie, there's a problem. I've had clients all of a sudden have a real different version of the events in their deposition, to the point where I'm going to fire them. Yeah. You know, we're only as good as the value that you bring to us yourself, because I can't prevent you from going out and washing and waxing your car and lifting weights in your driveway.
Yeah.
Okay. If you do that, you may as well go home. Nobody's going to pay you shit.
Yeah.
Okay. But the things are, you have to remember that you bear a responsibility. I tell every client, shut your social media down and stay inside your house. Shut your life off for 18 months and you'll be much better off. Like I tell clients with cigarettes and with everything else, for every one of those, just think of $10,000 just got set on fire. Yeah. All of that stuff and your failure to mitigate your own damages is one of the defendant's favorite things to argue about. You know, because when in doubt, the defendant defends cases on what I call the POS defense. When they can't figure out how to defend things on liability, they want to make you into a piece of shit. They just want to make you a bad person, okay? And that's their objective. Don't help them do it by doing things that are ignorant. You know, this is a job where we do cater to you, where we do take responsibility for you, where we do put you under our care. But just like when a parent drops a child off at school, you're out of my sight at that point. I've actually moved clients here before because I had to be able to keep an eye on them. I don't do that very often, but it's the situation where I understand what our obligation is, but I also want you to know that you have responsibility for that. You know, and like Randy said, I've had clients that just ghosted me before. You can't do that. If we're trying to get in touch with you, there's always a reason. Because let me tell you something, the chances are better than not, the lack of communication is going to come from our end and not your end. So if we're calling you, it's probably pretty important. And clients should generally try and remember that. We're not out to screw you. And whenever you call 52 times a day, the point that I'm trying to make is, one, it's irritating, but two, every time somebody has to take a phone call, and I love Mariah because Mariah used to call 66 times a day.
That's exactly why I laughed.
I mean, just incessantly. So, back to that, all those phone calls are problematic from a volume of perspectives, but probably most significantly is when we have to take them, what occurs is we're not looking at your case.
Yeah.
When you call us continually, we're getting pulled off constantly. So always try to keep that in mind. Our office sends out about a 10-page letter at the beginning of the case that introduces you to the lawsuit, tells you when to call, tells you when we're able to meet. Okay, I don't do it every day. I'd get nothing done if I took client phone calls all the time. And clients really need to understand that. We will give you a report, and I'll give you a report on significant activity. But for the most part, I don't inundate clients with every single filing in a case, you know, because that's all I'd be doing. I do my best to copy people on major things, but it's hard to do both because we're already having to battle and communicate with defense attorneys, much less battle and communicate with a client. That's why I tell everybody from the outset, just like I'm going to tell the jury, I'm going to tell you that if you ever believe in anything, you've got to believe in me and you've got to learn to trust me. Because if you don't trust me, the relationship doesn't work. If the relationship doesn't work and the trust doesn't work, I can't truly take you into my custody. I can't truly take you and let you become a part of our family, let you become a part of our community, and believe in you the way I need to sell you to a jury. Because let me be really frank, when you stand up there and you ask for a bunch of money and something that's got 6 or 7 zeros behind it, I've got to believe it. Yeah. Because juries have a bullshit meter that they can smell a mile away. And if you don't believe what you're selling, they're going to know. So the thing is, you have to be able to believe in your client. I told somebody asked, or I guess it was on the show last week, you know, we were talking about what's the most important an attorney client, what's the most important characteristic or trait that an attorney can have? And I said, it's selflessness. The second most important, I would say, is a belief in their client, because you can't sell someone that you don't believe in.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't. And if you stand up there and you can't believe in your client, then you're really losing from the outset. You are. I mean, and Mariah's husband is a perfect example. Kerwin is one of my favorite people. He's really kind. He's really loving. He's a really good person. He's very easy for me to help. Very easy. Other clients, not so much. You know, but the point being, be a good person. Juries help people they like. They hurt people they don't. They may like me. They may think I'm wonderful. They may think Randy's just the best thing on the face of the earth. But if they don't like you, they won't help you. They'll do what's called a compromise verdict. I tried a case a few years ago. They gave me liability. They gave me marginal damages because, you know, the jury foreman's like, your client was just a miserable person. You know, she was defiant. She sat there and she was ugly. You know, and when I say ugly, I'm not unattractive, but I mean, her behavior was argumentative. It's those sorts of things. You know, you have to be deferential. You have to be kind. And I've made people give a really good appearance. And the point that I think Randy is really talented at, because he spends a lot of time with his clients, God knows way more than I do, is that Randy learns to humanize them from the outset. And that's one thing that you've got to do. You have a limited window of time when you go to try a case to convey who someone is that you've known for 2 years, however long, to a jury that sees them for a week, you know, and it's the hardest job as an attorney, in my opinion. You know, they really need to understand who they're dealing with. And, you know, it's our job to elicit that from you and to explain that through other witnesses. And it's hard sometimes. You know, you can be as soft, as funny, as likable, as everything that you want to be, but it doesn't mean you're going to get a good, large recovery for your client if they don't like them. So I think clients in general have got to understand that there's a wealth of responsibility that goes on their shoulders. I'm not going to ask you to go to court. I'm not going to ask you to go to depositions. I just ask that clients do their best to be their best representative of themselves at all times, because taking pride in who you are will ultimately shine for a jury in the long run. Really long-winded. So moving on, you know, let's talk to, well, I got to introduce Mariah. I briefly introduced her. Mariah, I've probably known for 8 years. I represented her husband, Kerwin. He got involved in an accident in God's favorite venue, Orleans Parish, Louisiana, and was a guest passenger in a moving truck that got struck by a offshore service vehicle that was on its way to drop people off offshore. Interesting case. It's in Orleans Parish, which speaks volumes about the fear that defendants have of that place. But again, you have to understand that the adage that we discussed earlier, Kerwin's, and I hate that he's not here to even say hi, but as usual, Kerwin's probably being a good person, off taking care of children.
That's exactly what he's doing.
And Mariah, his wife, was probably the most responsible client I've had. You are.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very bothersome in the beginning. I give her a hard time about it now because Mr. Patrick. She would ask 2 questions and come back with 3 more 5 minutes later. And God knows I probably yelled at her, "Shut up, Mariah, we've had enough." No, I am a little matter of fact with people sometimes, but it's with a good heart, I hope.
Yes.
You know, so Mariah, tell us a little bit about how you and Kerwin are doing and what's kind of going on.
Okay, well, Kerwin and I are doing great. We actually are about to be having our 7th child due in November.
Oh, congratulations. I told Kerwin if he got near you with that thing, it was going to be bad.
Well, we were trying for a girl because, he has 6 children. I only have 2 boys. So I was trying for my girl, but it got another boy. So we're done this time. This is it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes. But, we've been doing great since, obviously since, you came into our lives and helped us out tremendously through his lawsuit and everything. But we're from Morgan City, Louisiana. And like you said, we've been knowing you for 8 years now. We actually met you when you had your office in Lafayette, Louisiana.
I don't even remember. How did y'all find me? I think you were referred by somebody you know is what
Yes.
Kerwin said.
Kerwin has a friend that was actually a client of yours prior to his accident, and he's the one that actually referred you to us.
Is it Terrence?
So,
who is it?
Terrence Burrell.
Yeah. Represented. He was an anchor handling case against Delmar about 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So we've been knowing about you for 10 years for sure. But since we've met you and you helped Kerwin through his case and everything, he was injured in a car accident, like you said. He did have 2 surgeries. He had an artificial disc replaced in his neck, and he also has a neurostimulator in his back. So he's limited to certain things he can do. So at the end of his case, we decided, with the help of you and also Miss Rachel, to invest in rental property. So we became landlords, and that's actually helped us out tremendously with obviously having so many kids. It gave us the opportunity to be home with them.
Yeah. Someone that could sleep.
Yeah. So, but we've been landlords for 2 years now, so it's been great. We love it and everything. But obviously, since you guys have moved to Houston, we've been up there a few times in his lawsuit. That's actually where we came for him to close his case and everything. But it's been great. Y'all have helped us so much. Y'all just so many people in the office have become kind of like family. Of course, it's not all easy in the beginning. It's definitely a process to, like you said, I was calling you a million times a day. But it took some time for me to understand, there is a process. You just have to have patience. And once you understand that it takes patience, it goes by a lot easier.
I'm curious because I don't know. I'm pretty good at explaining things once I get the opportunity to explain, or I actually get off the hamster wheel. But tell me what occurred and when in the process it was that you kind of turned your trust over to me. What about it changed and what occurred?
Well, in the beginning, I was one of the clients that expected the attorney to be available 24/7. And, I just thought you were going to be available to talk to all the time. And then, of course, I had to find out, well, there's other people, there's paralegals and secretaries and just other people that can answer questions for you instead of, like you said, taking your time and pulling you away from case or dealing with, maybe a court or something like that. Instead, you got to stop and talk to clients. So once, I started to put trust into other people in the firm, to help us instead of only wanting to deal with you, that, that helped a lot too. Miss Rachel Martin Deckelman, she was the other attorney that came, work for you whenever in the beginning of Kerwin's suit. And I'm sure I bugged her a pretty good bit too. But she was awesome.
And there's no doubt you're a texter as well.
Yes. So, but honestly, Mr. Patrick, just once we got over the beginning process of just getting all of the documents to you and what happened in the accident, like getting the police report and all that stuff. And then you started piecing his case together. And then once we finally got to meet you face to face in your office, and you just kind of explained, the process more to us. Look, you're going to have depositions, and, you're going to have to, there's tests and stuff you're going to have to do to find out the extent of your, injuries and everything. So once we understood, look, this isn't going to happen overnight. He's only, he's trying to make it end as fast as he can. I'm sure,
Right.
once we understood that it's not, like I said, that was the probably most stressful thing, expecting it to be over with like in a year. And then the year point would come and it's like, okay, it's not done. How much longer you got, you know?
Right.
But like you said, every case is different. I mean, you never know. It can end in a couple months. It can end in a couple of years. I know you've had cases that lasted, 10 years or longer. So, I mean, it just really depends. Everybody's case is different. That's why it's so important to contact an attorney when you're injured, so they can get everything together. And that's also why it's important you send any letters that you get from either your job that you was injured on or a doctor or anything like that. It's very important to send that to you guys so y'all can document and obviously catch things, because we've had, the company tried to send us a check for medicine or something. And obviously, I mean, if you accept certain things without the attorney knowing, that can affect your case. So it's just really important, anything you get that you send to the office, for sure.
Yeah, Mariah, one thing I was going to say is the biggest mistake I think people make, and every time I'm at dinner with friends or any environment where people figure out that I'm a lawyer or people that I'm with are lawyers, is contact your lawyer now. The
Right.
biggest mistake people make, and I get calls all the time during the day, and it's like, it's been 6 months. Like, the value of your case has plummeted. The evidence is gone. The vehicle is gone. We don't have, it was destroyed. How can I assert, a tire defect or a windshield defect? And people, they don't understand until you explain why, so I think
Right.
that's the first thing that I tell you, and you've learned this the hard way, but just people that are out there, contact your lawyer immediately. Number one,
Right.
there's all kinds of deadlines that happen. You may get hit by a police officer or a government employee, and you have a very small window to give notice if not your host. I think that's
Right.
one. And then I think number two, initially what I always like to do with clients is sit them down and explain, this is the lifeline of a lawsuit. These are the things that can happen. This is because I think that promotes trust. And one thing that I always remind clients, and for the people that are out there, so many people out there don't realize that as personal injury lawyers, there's this beautiful thing called a contingency contract, right? And other lawyers think, I can't afford a lawyer. I can't pay lawyers make $500, $600, $700 bucks an hour. I can't afford that, therefore I can't go to a lawyer. Not realizing that we have contingency agreements, that it means we're on the same side. Trust me, we're not going to shortchange ourselves, just like we're not going to shortchange you. When people understand that we are aligned, it's this united front, this lion pride against them, then I think that promotes some trust. But that's one thing that people don't understand. It's not we're adversarial with the client and also adversarial with the other side. We are completely together. Even if we're selfish lawyers, which we're not,
Right.
we are on the same side. The more that we pound the other side, the more that we get more for you, we get more for us. And I think that once people understand that about personal injury world, it creates that trust.
Right.
We're not do anything to shortchange ourselves, let alone you. We're not going to do anything to mess up, let alone you. And trust me, we're going to be aggressive as we can. We want to get paid as much as you do, and we want that money to go to you to take care of yourself and your children.
Right.
But now that you've gone through that, you understand that, right?
Yeah.
At the beginning, it's this new world, it's a new planet. It's not intuitive at all. But once you sort of step foot on planet Mars and you breathe in the oxygen and you realize this is how it works, you feel more comfortable. So
Right. Yes.
That's just sort of part of it.
Yes, definitely. Well, something else I do want to put in there, like Mr. Patrick had also mentioned, is how important it is to make all of your appointments. I know from experience that if you miss one appointment, it can, push your case back easily 3 months or longer. I mean, especially if it's something as far as like a test that was ordered from one of your doctors, and then you have a follow-up appointment with your doctor, and then you didn't get that test done. So now there's no point in you going to that doctor. They have nothing to look at. Now that appointment has to get pushed back, and it's just a domino effect from there. So it's definitely important. Like you said, you can't have a gap in your medical history. So it's very important. And some doctors may seem like, well, what do I need to go there for? But they're all for a reason. I mean, you just don't understand certain injuries that an accident can cause you. You wouldn't think you would have this injury, but it's definitely some, other things that it can affect other than what you would normally think. So all doctors or specialists are there for a reason.
I think one thing, Mariah, that one of the topics we want to discuss is sort of debunking some of the myths that people have. And I think one of them that people have is, if you retain us as a lawyer, as a personal injury lawyer, we represent you in every single aspect of your life when it comes. And that's just not true. We're specifically here to represent you in a certain kind of case. In fact, it's duty if it's something that we don't do all the time or we don't feel competent in, we refer to someone else. If somebody calls and says, hey, I need you to assist me on this immigration issue, Patrick and I know plenty of lawyers that we can refer you to, but it's certainly not something that we can handle ourselves. And I think that's one thing. I think another thing, and I don't know if you talked to Patrick about this when he represented you, but I think a lot of clients think that every single case we go to trial, right? They're used to seeing, trial lawyers, and it's like, you file the lawsuit and next Friday you're trying the case. It's like Matthew McConaughey and
God, suits where they get to try it the next day.
Right, correct.
Jesus, I wish I could retain information together.
It's definitely not that simple.
An expert to testify at trial. Yeah. That's one thing that we wanted to discuss. And then I think another thing is that people think that lawyers only take on cases that will guarantee us a big payday. Certainly, I think there's a part of what we do where we look at cases. We want to make sure. One thing I always tell clients, even when we turn potential clients down, is that we need to evaluate the case properly, because the last thing I want to do for ourselves and for you is to drag you through litigation for 2 years, knowing that maybe the law is not so solid on this issue, and that can completely hose the case. The last thing that we want is to do that for ourselves as a business and to run you through the mud, because for us, we're sharks. We're used to swimming in those waters. Litigation isn't a big deal. We do it every day. We're used to it. But for clients, we know that it's a very taxing, exhausting, very scary, proposition. So what was that, I guess, like for you? Do you understand that now that you've been through this lawsuit with your husband, that it's tough, but you're also going to be okay after a while?
Right, most definitely. Well, first, by the fact that you said a lot of clients or people think that once you have an attorney, they will represent you for everything. That's definitely not true. For example, we dealt with custody or child support during Kerwin's suit, and of course, I would call Mr. Patrick and be like, hey, what do we do about this? And he, of course, he would refer us to someone he knew dealing in, that situation. So that came in handy for us because we ended up, calling another attorney. So we have had to hire another attorney in the process of his lawsuit. So that definitely doesn't work that way when it comes to them, represent you for everything. Like you said, of course, if it was something that you guys handle, well, then, of course, y'all would take another, case on with that situation, but y'all are definitely great at referring to other people if it's something that y'all don't, handle. But secondly, obviously, like I stated, the lawyers are not available 24/7. Obviously y'all have to sleep too. Like you said, y'all have lives and kids and families and everything. So that's definitely a big misconcept. But however, y'all do have enough respect to try to get back with the clients in a timely manner. That's why there's other people that work with the firm, too, that's available. Like, like I said, the paralegals and stuff, they're great. I know they handle a lot too. So it's definitely good that you can talk to other people, but it's also important to understand, there is a right time to, call and talk about things, and definitely don't need to call every day. That's something that helped us, be patient, is learning that you can't just get an answer right away for everything. And like I said, it's a process. Things take time. You have to do one step to get to another. So that's that.
I think we've got some questions, Celia, or do we have some people? We don't have any
We're
questions.
about to get cut off, it looks like, with our time. So Mariah, tell everybody, if you could, what is the one thing that you took away from the process that you wish you had known in the beginning? Is it that we don't sleep with y'all every night and you can't get us 24 hours a day? Or is there something more important than that, that you would take away from it that really soothed you throughout the process?
Honestly, like I said, once we learn to trust you and just know that, this is what you went to school for, you know what you're doing, you know what's best for your clients. And once we trusted you completely to just handle the case and us not feel like we had to know every aspect of what was going on, that helped a lot. Like I said, if it was something important enough, somebody would call us. And that's one thing I made sure I never missed any phone calls of, or if I did, I called immediately back because I knew if y'all were calling, it was for something important, So that definitely helped out a lot. But like I said, once I understood that I didn't need to call a million times a day, someone would get back with me whenever they had, an answer for my question, or if it was to talk to you when you had time, to talk to your clients and stuff. It was really just learning patience and just to know y'all weren't just ignoring us, y'all have jobs to do, y'all have, not even that, we're not the only client. You have other clients, that need your attention as well. So just once we accepted that and everything, it really, like I said, it didn't happen in the beginning. It was the first stressful, probably at least year, because that's when everything is new and you have to just kind of learn how it's going to be, And of course, because of that, you have a lot of questions. But y'all were great, and I do apologize for all the bugging in the beginning, but I think I got better at it.
Okay.
After all these years.
No, look, I mean, that's kind of part of the process. And I was going to actually ask you, for people out there that want to understand why you hire a lawyer and maybe why specifically you guys hired and kept me, I guess the point I would ask, and because it's about getting to know Patrick Daniel Law this month, what specifically was it that made you trust me? I know there was the conversation where I explained more about the case, but was there something about me specifically that helped you trust me?
Um, well, honestly, Mr. Patrick, it was so many years ago, but definitely once we had that, one-on-one face, spent time with you and got to know you in person instead of just talking over the phone and everything. And you, like you said, you taught us more about the case and helped us to understand more of how it went. And of course, I just felt like, well, Kerwin for sure definitely took a liking to you, which is rare because he's a pretty to himself person. So that doesn't happen too often, but he did. And he just, that's for him to put his trust into you. It just meant a lot. I mean, I can't speak for himself to, to say exactly what made him trust you, but I do know that it helped a lot when we had that one-on-one meeting with you and you just explained everything to us. It's just knowing what's going to happen in a case, just the basics of it, that helped a lot because like I said, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if he was going to need surgery or how many doctors he was going to go to or depositions, mediations. I mean, it's a lot to a lawsuit, other than you just injured and then you get, you settle at an amount in the end. So it's just learning those things, and you helped us learn those things. You would take the time, and anytime Kerwin really did have questions, you always simplified it for him and helped him to understand better.
Well, I think you make a really good point, and I think it goes back to the way Randy and I handle cases is your case was for sale, it wasn't on sale. And the
Right.
point of that is the way we handle files isn't necessarily the quickest, but it will often be extremely lucrative for our clients, and it's complex. And I think the point you made was a good one, that there's a lot of moving parts to really correctly handling a lawsuit. And the point with respect to that is that requires, a little bit of extra explanation that maybe some lawyers can't offer to their clients because they simply don't handle cases that way. And I think you made a good point with that. So Mariah, you're part of the family.
Yes, and that
Appreciate it. And
something else I want to add in there, Mr. Patrick, that did help us to trust you a lot is obviously in the beginning we had our son Aiden. So he was only 5 or 6 weeks old whenever we first met you. So he basically grew up knowing, you and Miss Libby and Miss Rachel and stuff like that. And we have been out to dinner with you and stuff, and with your wife and stuff like that. So you definitely became family. And you took my kids in like, like their uncle or something, and they love you to death. So especially my son Aiden, he loves your car. He still talks about that thing.
Oh. Comment on that, but I'm glad that he's doing good. And it's true. We do understand that our clients have kids and have lives and have issues and have all that stuff. And, I think it's, as I've always said, I think a lesson that goes out there for every lawyer that exists is that we work for y'all. It's not the other way around, and we can't forget that. So,
Right.
I just appreciate the patience, and I appreciate the trust. And, you guys are still part of the family, and
Yes, sir.
our clients, So we'll give Kerwin our best, and
I sure will.
we miss him, and I feel sorry for him having to babysit.
He feels sorry for him too. But it's the last one, I promise.
Well, you guys have a good day, and thanks so much for joining, Mariah.
Thank you, y'all too. Bye, Mr. Randy. Bye, Ms. Patrick.
I appreciate it.